Welcome to Red-tastic. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my brother have company over? I grew up in a very crowded house, as in 9 people living in a 3-bedroom plus regular overnight guests. The house was always cluttered as a result, and we were poor as it is. I've always been deeply introverted, so this was hell on earth. I promised myself as a kid that when I had my own place, it would be my sanctuary, and purely for me, myself and I, and that I didn't want anyone in my space. I'm now in my 30s and kept my promise to myself, and barring visits from close family, I never have company over. It's bliss. However, about a month ago, my brother, 26, had a breakup and was kicked out of his apartment. So putting family over my own hang-ups, I invited him to stay with me for a few weeks until he gets back on his feet. I was fine with this. Take note that he doesn't pay rent, buy his own groceries, etc. He's here for free, using my utilities and has free access to the food until he leaves. Guest, not tenant. We're now having a conflict because he's been trying, and in 2 instances actually going ahead and doing it, to invite his friends over to my place. The first time I came home from work to see him and his friend sitting in the living room. I asked his friend to leave and told my brother he knows how I feel about my space and that he had no right to invite someone over without asking. He apologized until the next day, where he began a trend of nagging, complaining that he wants to be able to have his friends over, making a variety of excuses, justifications, and compromises, such as they'll stay in his guest room, they will only be over for a little while, they will be respectful, and so on. These conversations might happen 3 times per day, every day for the past week. Each time I refuse. Fast forward to this Thursday. I once again come home to hear my brother talking to someone in my home gym and listen. He has 2 friends over working out. I again kick them both out immediately. This leads to a major argument where my brother calls me an a-hole, tells me that he's going through a hard time and doesn't feel ready to go out anywhere and socialize yet due to distress from his breakup. So he wants to invite friends to come over for support and socialization since he needs it right now, and that there is no reason for me to have a problem with it since he can have them over when I'm out, so they won't bother me. My argument is that it's my home and I don't want anyone I don't personally care for inside of it. I don't want them on my furniture, using my stuff, sitting on my toilet, drinking from my glasses. It makes me uncomfortable, and that should be enough. I told him it's my house, not a support group, and that he's staying rent-free as a guest and has no right to go over my head. I told him nothing stops him from going to their house or meeting elsewhere if he wanted to. He refused to drop it, so I told him that he has another week to find an apartment for himself. I know I'm a very content recluse, but am I an a-hole? Edit. In his defense, his friends aren't rude people, but I still don't really want these people in my home. You're not an a-hole, OP. I understand that your brother is going through a lot right now and he needs all the emotional support he can get. But you have already done a lot for him. He should also consider the fact that you don't like a ton of people in your space, and you're making an exception for him because he's family. Your brother can go to one of his friends' houses to see his friends or go out with them. He doesn't necessarily have to bring them to your house. Don't feel bad for setting boundaries in your own home. If your brother doesn't let it go, he should leave. Now for some comments. I will preface this by saying I feel a wee bit sorry for you that you never have friends over to your house. But each to their own. I honestly think you could benefit from counseling and talking through that stuff from when you were a kid that made you feel like this. That said, not the a-hole. It's your house and your rules. He's staying rent-free and should respect that or get the F out. Not the a-hole. You're doing him a huge favor by letting him stay with you, especially since you're an introvert. You gave him simple instructions, no guests. He doesn't have to like it, but he should respect it. I get he is having a shit time right now, but when you are a guest in someone's house, you follow their rules. He violated your trust twice, and you have every right to tell him to leave. It doesn't make you an a-hole. It means you're not going to put up with him doing the one thing you have repeatedly asked him not to do. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for kicking my daughter out of my house and not wanting to see her again? When I was 16, my girlfriend got pregnant and a family sent her away, and I've had no contact with her or my child until recently when my daughter found me. I was excited to reconnect with her at first, but quickly found out she was carrying a lot of bitterness and resentment from lies that her mom's side of the family told her. One lie they told her was that I was the one who had run away after she was born. Another lie they told her was that they had been trying to reach out to me for years to get me to reconnect with her. The truth is, I was the one over the years who kept coming back asking where they had sent her. Also, her personality is horrific. The first time she met my wife, she turned to me and said, "You left my mom for that? She's not that pretty." I wanted to cut off contact with my daughter right then and there, but my wife has actually been the one urging me to keep going. The last straw happened recently. She came to visit us at our house, and my wife made her lunch and she kept criticizing everything. After lunch, she was walking around the house and she saw a picture of our kids. We have 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls, who are all adults. But our first child before those 4 were born passed on when he was 4 months old, and we still have his baby picture there. She picked up the picture and said, "You guys have a baby? Where is it? When he grows up, hopefully he doesn't inherit looks from your wife's side of the family." My wife broke down, and by that point, I had just had enough of her whole attitude and comments and just bitterness. I told her that the picture was of our dead child and her eyes widened, and she started to apologize, but I didn't want to hear it. I told her to get out and never to come back. I don't want to see her again. She left a voicemail later trying to apologize, but I automatically deleted it. I'm just done. And I think my wife is too. She's in bed asleep right now, but she randomly wakes up and starts crying every now and then. Am I the a-hole? You're not an a-hole for telling your daughter to not come see you again, OP. Especially after the mean comments she made towards your wife, who has been nothing but nice to her. However, if you feel her hatred stems from what her mother's side of the family has told her, then I think you should have a sit down with her and tell her your side. I wouldn't say give up on her yet exactly. Lay down boundaries and tell her you want a relationship with her, but you can't keep being rude to your family. I really hope she sees where you're coming from and changes her view of things. Good luck, OP. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. She's obviously acting badly, but that could mean she's just very hurt. Sometimes an undeserved level of compassion is required for people who are hurt. If she feels abandoned or was told she was abandoned, this could just be her lashing out. I think the fact that she knows she crossed a line and is apologetic demonstrates there's good in her, but that's obviously not an excuse to act as she did. Your wife had nothing to do with how your daughter was raised or the lies she was told. Your wife wasn't the one stopping you from meeting your daughter, and it sounds like she has been welcoming. While your daughter has been insulting her from their first meeting, I know that your daughter didn't intend to inflict this deep and vicious wound. She seems to have realized that you went too far. But the pain she inflicted can't be simply apologized away. If she ever wants to be a part of your family, she needs therapy and a truckload of good manners, not the a-hole. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for telling my nephew his dad had an affair? Bear with me, this is long, and I'm having to cut out the background for the space limit. My sister was with her first husband for 4 years dating and then married for 14, so 18 years total. 13 years ago, on their 14th wedding anniversary, he finally admitted to my sister that he has been having an affair. and is leaving my sister for the affair partner. They had a 4-year-old son when this went down. Brother-in-law kicked my sister out of the house. It wasn't my sister's choice for her marriage to end or to be forced from her home. He married his affair partner and things remained contemptuous. My sister passed away very suddenly 5 years ago. All of these years I had a feeling that brother-in-law wasn't telling my nephew the truth about her death, but he was a kid and I wasn't their parent, so I tried to respect boundaries. I knew that one day my nephew would come to me with questions and I decided that when he was old enough to think to ask these questions, he would be old enough to hear the answers. This was something I really struggled with because I knew that those answers would be extremely different from what his dad had told him. I didn't want to cause problems in their relationship and I didn't want to hurt my nephew. The day finally came 2 weeks ago. Nephew is 17 and a half now. He started going through a depression at Christmas time with his mom once again not being there with him. He could tell his dad was lying about things. He ended up going to therapy and his therapist encouraged him to talk to me to get the answers he needed. I feel like the lies were seriously hindering my nephew's ability to cope with the loss of his mom. When brother-in-law and his wife, affair partner, asked nephew why he was depressed, and he answered it was about his mom's death, the wife looked at nephew and said, "That happened years ago. You should be over that by now." Brother-in-law had been telling him lies about his mom that I won't go into here, so nephew's first question was about his mother's death. I explained the autopsy results as gently as I could. His next question was, why would she abandon me? Given his age and the fact that the therapist encouraged him to come to me for answers, I told him the truth. This was a huge blow to him. His dad had lied about so many things. Edit. She didn't abandon him. That was a lie. Brother-in-law kicked them both out of the house to move affair partner in. Brother-in-law is a pathological liar, so when nephew asked him point blank if he had had an affair with stepmom, brother-in-law lied to his face. But nephew is smart and had confirmed everything I said with a close family friend. So nephew said, "So guess who else I talked to?" He was caught. He told my nephew he had the affair to keep nephew safe. 2 days later, brother-in-law contacted me, said a bunch of vile shit and told me I couldn't talk to my nephew anymore at all. Brother-in-law is threatening me with legal action if I contact my nephew and will not allow my nephew to contact us. I feel like I did the right thing by telling nephew the truth. But it's been 2 weeks since I've heard from my nephew and it's killing me. Am I the a-hole for telling the truth? Last edit. I came into this fully prepared to be the a-hole and to apologize to brother-in-law if that was the case. I'm relieved that so many people think I'm not the a-hole, and I truly appreciate all your messages. I haven't had time to reply to all of them, but I'm reading them all, and your kind words of support mean the world to me. A common question was, what could brother-in-law possibly do to me legally? The answer is, I have no idea. But he's a crazy mother effer, and I wouldn't put anything past him. As crazy and a-hole-ish as he is, my nephew is physically safe with him. He was never physically abusive. I do not have any trusted friends or family that could help me get a discreet message to nephew. The family friend that confirmed the affair to him was the only one, and brother-in-law has warned them off too. Brother-in-law is a teacher at nephew's high school, so I can't leave a message there either. I'm still on the fence about trying to contact him. I don't believe brother-in-law would actually be able to get a restraining order against me, but my nephew is too important to us to take that chance. He has another year of high school, so it would be difficult for him if his dad is threatening to cut him off if he speaks to me. Several people asked about nephew staying with me and my husband. He is absolutely welcome to live here, and both of our kids have offered to give up their rooms. Now for some comments. I'm not sure where you live, but in most states in the US, a child at 17 can legally move out of a parent's home. I hope he bounces out of that situation soon. His father and stepmother sound toxic as F. I'm glad you're willing to let him move in with you when he wants to do that. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. This was never information you should have had to tell your nephew in the first place. And the fact you respected his intelligence and dignity as a person when he asked is important. Despite what your brother-in-law thinks, you didn't start drama. It's really not even your drama. Your nephew could have handled this situation more delicately without the name drop to avoid the strife you're currently experiencing. But we were all 17 once and we don't always go into these things calmly.